Imagine fleets of ships so massive they could carry entire armies across oceans, commanded by an explorer whose voyages dwarfed anything Europe would attempt for centuries. What you are about to learn will shatter everything you thought you knew about the age of exploration and reveal how history's greatest maritime achievements were deliberately erased from the record. Decades before Christopher Columbus set sail with his 3 small ships, a Chinese admiral commanded armadas of hundreds of vessels, traveling to distant lands and establishing trade networks that spanned 3 continents. This is the extraordinary story of Zheng He, the Muslim eunuch admiral who led 7 epic voyages across the Indian Ocean, reaching the shores of Africa, Arabia, and Southeast Asia with fleets that made European explorers look like children playing with toy boats. Born in 1371 in Yunnan province, southwestern China, with the birth name Ma he came from a Muslim family with distinguished ancestry tracing back to Persian nobility who had settled in China generations earlier. His childhood was marked by tragedy when Ming dynasty forces conquered Yunnan in 1381, capturing the 10-year-old boy and forcing him into service as a eunuch in the imperial household, a cruel practice that defined his identity forever. Despite this traumatic beginning, Ma he demonstrated exceptional intelligence, leadership abilities, and military prowess, eventually catching the attention of Prince Zhudi, who would later become the Yongle Emperor. During the civil war that brought Zhudi to power, Ma he proved himself in battle, displaying strategic brilliance and unwavering loyalty that earned him the prince's trust and a new name, Zheng He. When Zhudi became the Yongle Emperor in 1402, he promoted Zheng He to admiral and entrusted him with an unprecedented mission that would reshape China's relationship with the known world. The emperor envisioned China not as an isolated kingdom but as the center of a vast tribute system, with foreign nations acknowledging Chinese supremacy through trade and diplomatic missions. If you're captivated by these hidden chapters of history, subscribe to Hidden Minds and hit the notification bell to discover more forgotten explorers and overlooked pioneers who shaped our world. Check the link in the description for maps, historical documents, and additional resources about Zheng He's extraordinary voyages. In 1405, Zheng He embarked on his first voyage with a fleet that defied imagination, consisting of more than 300 ships and carrying nearly 28,000 men across the South China Sea. The flagship vessels, known as treasure ships, were the largest wooden ships ever constructed, measuring approximately 400 feet long and 160 feet wide, 9 times larger than Columbus's Santa Maria. These massive vessels had 9 masts, multiple decks, and luxurious cabins with balconies, carrying not just sailors and soldiers but also translators, doctors, astronomers, merchants, and diplomatic envoys. The fleet included specialized vessels for different purposes, including horse ships for transporting cavalry, supply ships carrying provisions for months at sea, water tankers, and combat vessels bristling with bronze cannons. Zheng He's armada was a floating city, a demonstration of Chinese technological superiority and imperial power designed to awe every nation they encountered during their voyages. The first expedition traveled through the Malacca Strait, visiting Java, Sumatra, Ceylon, and ultimately reaching Calicut on the southwestern coast of India, establishing trade relationships and collecting tribute. Unlike European colonizers who would follow a century later, Zheng He's approach emphasized peaceful trade, cultural exchange, and diplomatic relations rather than conquest and exploitation, though he was fully prepared to use military force when necessary. During his second voyage in 1407, the fleet expanded its reach further west, exploring the coasts of Thailand, Malaysia, and establishing a Chinese presence in strategic ports throughout Southeast Asia. The third expedition, launched in 1409, pushed even further, reaching Hormuz at the mouth of the Persian Gulf, a crucial trading hub connecting China with the Middle East and beyond. On the fourth voyage beginning in 1413, Zheng He's fleet reached the Arabian Peninsula, visiting Aden and possibly sailing along the Red Sea toward Egypt and the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Perhaps most remarkably, during expeditions 5, 6, and 7, Chinese ships reached the East African coast, visiting Somalia, Kenya, and possibly Mozambique, decades before Portuguese explorers would claim to discover these lands. Historical records describe Zheng He's arrival in African ports where local rulers presented exotic gifts including giraffes, zebras, lions, and precious gems, items that caused sensation in the Chinese imperial court. The Chinese called giraffes qilin, believing them to be mythical creatures whose appearance signaled divine approval of the emperor's rule, and their arrival from Africa became legendary in Chinese culture. Zheng He's navigators used sophisticated techniques including compass navigation, astronomical observations, and detailed charts that accurately mapped coastlines, currents, and safe harbors across the Indian Ocean. The navigational records kept during these voyages, compiled in texts like the Maokun map, contained information about routes, distances, landmarks, and maritime conditions that demonstrated advanced cartographic knowledge. Chinese shipbuilding technology of this era was remarkably advanced, employing watertight compartments that prevented ships from sinking if the hull was breached, a safety feature European vessels wouldn't adopt for 400 years. The treasure ships used balanced rudders, multiple masts with adjustable sails, and sophisticated steering mechanisms that allowed them to navigate both open oceans and shallow coastal waters with remarkable maneuverability. On board, the fleet carried Chinese porcelain, silk, tea, and other luxury goods which they traded for spices, precious stones, exotic animals, and rare woods from the lands they visited. Zheng He established Chinese communities in strategic ports, creating a network of trading posts that facilitated commerce and cultural exchange long after the fleets returned home. His missions were not purely commercial but also scientific and diplomatic, with scholars documenting foreign customs, languages, plants, animals, and geographical features of the distant lands they encountered. During his travels, Zheng He encountered pirates, hostile rulers, and treacherous weather, responding with both diplomacy and overwhelming force when circumstances demanded military intervention. In one notable incident off the coast of Ceylon in 1411, a hostile king attempted to ambush Zheng He's forces, but the Chinese admiral captured the king and brought him back to China in chains, demonstrating that peaceful intentions did not mean weakness. After presenting the captured king to the Yongle emperor, Zheng He surprisingly advocated for his release, and the king was sent home with gifts, transforming a former enemy into a tributary ally. The scale and success of these voyages demonstrated that China possessed both the technological capability and resources to establish a global maritime empire decades before European powers began their age of exploration. Yet tragically, after Zheng He's seventh and final voyage in 1433, Chinese policy shifted dramatically inward, and the government actively suppressed records of these extraordinary achievements. The Yongle emperor's successors, influenced by Confucian scholars who viewed maritime trade as wasteful and foreign contact as corrupting, ordered the treasure fleet dismantled and shipyards destroyed. Official records of Zheng He's voyages were deliberately burned, navigational charts were destroyed, and discussing the expeditions became dangerous as China adopted an increasingly isolationist stance known as the Haijin policy. This dramatic reversal of fortune meant that one of history's greatest maritime achievements was systematically erased, leaving only fragments of evidence scattered through private accounts and foreign records. Zheng He himself died during or shortly after his final voyage, possibly buried at sea, and his legacy was deliberately forgotten by the very empire he had served so faithfully for 30 years. For centuries, his achievements remained known only through whispered legends and fragmentary mentions in texts that survived the purges, while European explorers received credit for discoveries Chinese sailors had made decades earlier. It wasn't until the 20th century that historians began piecing together the true scale of Zheng He's voyages, recognizing them as among humanity's greatest maritime achievements. Archaeological evidence including Chinese porcelain found along African coasts, genetic studies showing ancient connections between Chinese and East African populations, and surviving maps have confirmed the basic accuracy of historical accounts. The contrast between Zheng He's massive fleets and Columbus's three small ships highlights how completely the narrative of exploration has been dominated by European perspectives. When Columbus sailed in 1492 with the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, The largest ship measured barely 90 feet, less than a quarter the size of Zheng He's treasure ships. Columbus commanded a crew of 90 men, while Zheng He's smallest expeditions included tens of thousands, yet history books present Columbus as the great explorer and Zheng He remains virtually unknown outside academic circles. The question haunts historians about what might have happened if China had continued its maritime expansion instead of retreating into isolation, potentially preventing European colonization of Asia and Africa. Some scholars argue that Zheng He's peaceful approach to foreign contact, emphasizing trade over conquest, represented a fundamentally different model of international relations that was lost when China turned inward. Others suggest that the enormous cost of the treasure fleets, combined with threats on China's northern borders, made the expeditions unsustainable regardless of their diplomatic and commercial success. What remains undeniable is that Zheng He commanded the largest wooden ships ever built, led the most extensive maritime expeditions of the pre-modern era, and established connections between civilizations on a scale unprecedented in history. His fleets traveled approximately 50,000 miles over 7 voyages, visiting more than 30 countries and establishing Chinese presence in regions that wouldn't see European ships for decades. The deliberate destruction of records means we'll never know the full extent of his achievements, what lands he might have reached, what discoveries were made and then lost to political suppression. Today, Zheng He is honored in China and throughout Southeast Asia, with temples, museums, and monuments celebrating his legacy as one of history's greatest naval commanders. Recent discoveries continue to shed light on his voyages, including shipwrecks, trading posts, and archaeological evidence that confirm Chinese presence in regions previously thought unexplored until European arrival. The story of Zheng He reminds us that exploration and discovery are not unique to any single culture or civilization, and that history is written by those who control the narrative rather than those who make it. His erasure from history demonstrates how political decisions can hide extraordinary achievements, leaving brilliant minds forgotten while others receive credit for lesser accomplishments made decades later. Every time we look at a map of the Indian Ocean trade routes, every time we study maritime history, we see the ghost of Zheng He's massive fleets that once sailed these waters with confidence and purpose. The Muslim eunuch admiral who commanded ships larger than any built before, who reached Africa before Europeans, who mapped oceans and connected continents, deserves recognition as one of exploration's towering figures.